Welcome in Who's the Champ? I am Chris Helms, your host. MLW Major League Wrestling making its return April 12th to Charleston, South Carolina. And no better way to bring MLW to town and to bring in the brand new MLW World Heavyweight Champion. He made it through the Battle Riot. Ladies and gentlemen, my guest this week is the new Major League Wrestling World Heavyweight Champion, Killer Kross, the Blood King of the Battle Riot. You know, Killer Kross, thank you for joining me this week. You know, I gotta ask, how did it feel to win the MLW Championship? Something that we all knew that you deserved for such a long time. How did that feel?
Well, it's hard to put into words because I didn't necessarily do it for me. I was going into it thinking I was maybe gonna do it for me, but the closer I got to it, I was like, no, like I feel like my real life motivation is to do this for everybody who's always stayed in my corner. And whether it's friends, family, fans, I mean, that's being able to accomplish something like that in my career for people who have been behind me, I think it's that's really what it's about for me.
Absolutely. You know, it was such a moment. You said there that night, you know, after you went and it lasted 39 other men, you grabbed the microphone and you said that you didn't do it, that we did it with you. And as a fan of professional wrestling, I felt like I was connected. You know, Dusty Rhodes said this one thing. It's like my hand's reaching out to your hand, touching your hand when he won the NWA World Heavyweight Championship. And the way that you announced that, you know, it had that moment. You are what our parents were, their generations. When they saw Dusty do that, they connected. And when you said that we did it together, you honestly got a true emotion out of it. And speaking of emotions, you had a special moment that night. You had the pleasure of your mom being in the crowd and seeing you go through all this and having you win the MLW Heavyweight Championship, World Heavyweight Championship, with her being in the crowd and just, her surviving cancer. What a wow. First off, we're sending our prayers and loves to, Mama Kross and everything, and congratulations for doing all that. But tell me, how did it feel to have her in the crowd and watch you do this?
I kept looking over at her throughout the match in the front row to make sure she was okay with everything, because it got pretty physical. So very subtly, I would shoot her a look when I was completely covered in blood. I'd be like, I got it. I got it. And she would just give me a nod. And I was just looking at her at the end of the match, and I was just like, I have something to say. So I said it.
Like I said, what a powerful moment that was, that you got the chance to, do that with your mother. I said this several times, on the show. And one of the things that wrestling is absolutely wonderful with is bringing the family in. It was something that me and my father shared. And one of the things is that I always bring up family. My father had an amateur wrestling background, and they always said that, you always want your child to do better than what you did. But, you have a very intense background. You're trained in Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu. Was this something that, that you did younger? Did you go from a wrestler to doing Jiu-Jitsu? Will you tell me what it was, what your background in combat sports was?
My father was an amateur wrestler, and he was doing amateur wrestling since he was a little kid, boxing. So that was kind of part of our family culture. I was always participating in combat sports and martial arts growing up, and I learned jujitsu and catch wrestling and judo and a little bit of sambo before I ever got involved with pro wrestling.
You know, when you came to Charleston, you know, we're talking about your MMA background or your Brazilian Jiu Jitsu background. You know, I think the words that came out when MLW, Major League Wrestling, first announced that they were coming to Charleston back in November, we were so excited to see that the main event was you and your sparring partner, the rude dude Matt Riddle. And we were so excited to see that main event. And let me tell you, that main event lived up to the hype and then more. The two of you were just beast in that ring. So I gotta ask, what was it like being in the ring with Matt Riddle?
Well, I mean, I've been to Charleston many times and I've wrestled in Charleston many times, but coming back to MLW in Charleston was very special. Um, Also because I have a great opponent like Matt Riddle as well. There's only certain types of people you can showcase a certain level of talent with. People that can take a hit and give a hit, and they can keep moving forward, and the match just gets ultra physical. Riddle by no means is a small guy either. I think like most people, and this even happens to me, most people when they meet him in person, I've been an earshot away of hearing this numerous times, being like, I don't know you're that big. Like Matt looks, you know, like very fit, but in person, he's actually a very big guy. And when you have an opponent that's a good size that can hit and move, it just changes the entire chemistry of the match. A lot of people that I've competed against over, I don't know, 12 years, I'm usually bigger than them. So, there's only so much they can handle before we're going to have to call the match early. And so we sometimes, out of, professionalism, you have to scale stuff back. And that's just the nature of it but it's nice when you don't have to scale stuff back and people can see what you can really do.
You know, one of the other things, I have a history of having backyard wrestling, because I was one of those goofy kids that did it, and I trained in wrestling a little bit, and I always heard that you're when you're in there with your buddy or someone that you know very well, you become a little snug in the ring. When you two faced off with each other, were y'all a little snug in the ring?
Of course, because there's always a thing, when you don't know each other, you don't know if, somebody's thinking something's happening that's not happening. And, things start to go off the rails. But with him and I, it's like, no, we're going to push each other today. And then we're going to laugh about it when it's over, hopefully, if we're both conscious and not going to the hospital. So I'll tell you a crazy story. I don't think I've publicly broke this news yet, but so last year, at the end of the year, I didn't want to scare anybody, but I had a partial tear in my groin. It was just a freak accident. I was training really hard. I was going heavy. I was going up in weight. And so the reason I brought the black tights back was because I had my leg taped up and wrapped up and I had commitments and dates. So I was wrestling with a partially torn, like inside left hip adductor. And it was very, very painful. When your adrenaline's going, you can push through it, but I'm totally fine now. I've been fine since January. I just needed to take a little bit of time off to let it rest. But my whole leg was like black, green, and purple that night when you saw me compete. I just didn't want anyone, like not a lot of the guys didn't even know. I don't, we're here to have a good time, keep the energy positive, and we're here to put on the performance that people are paying to see. So none of that information needed to be included the night of, but that was a crazy, crazy night for a variety of reasons.
Absolutely, that night was it absolutely was crazy, and man, and I can tell you, we could not tell that you were hurting or you were black and blue or anything was torn. You looked like you were absolutely on your game. Absolutely, you look like you were on your game. One of the other things that you have the privilege of doing is sharing the ring and sharing the spotlight with your wife, Scarlett. You know, she came to Charleston. She opened the night and you closed the night. So it was very fitting. And, you know, you winning the MLW World Heavyweight Championship, and right when you won, she was able to run down there and hug you, and you're in the ring together. How proud was she when you won this?
It was good. It was fun. It's always been cool. Working with her has always been a great experience because we get to travel the world together. You know, I've said it a million times. As far as how she felt about the experience and the performance and all that, she thought it was very good. Um, it's weird. Like I'm trying to think of the best way to put this. So like, I don't think she has moments where she's like proud of me because she knows what I can do. It's more like she's happy for me and happy for people to get to see it, right? It's not like there's anything that ever happens out there live where she's shocked because she sees me dieting and training during the week. She knows what I'm actually capable of. So finally, when we get there and we accomplish the goal, she's just like, she's just pretty much just like, yeah, you know what I mean? There's never really a shock to any of it. And I'm kind of the same way with her. I'm just I'm very proud of her when she has a strong performance or gets to do something that she really wants to do in a live setting. So she was just very happy that my mother got to have that moment. Very happy that the fans got to have that moment where they finally feel like they're being heard, and that they're, you know, it's just there's a massive. I talked about this just recently. There's a massive cultural shift in the fan base of wrestling right now that I don't think the corporate sector is really very much in touch with. I don't think they know how to get in touch with it. There's a massive gap and they have no idea how to close it. And they're trying to do things performatively to make it look like they're closing it, that you know that they're listening, but they're not really getting it. And the gap started when you tell a fan base, and this is any wrestling company, when you tell a fan base that they're the lifeblood of the company and that they're the universe or whatever you want to call it, and they start calling for something and you don't give it to them and you tell them to shut up and you tell them their voices don't matter and you tell them social media they're not listening, there's a massive disconnect. And if you're going to treat them like a consumer base, you know, like you have to provide something that they're looking for. You don't tell them to shut up. So that moment of, you know, Battle Riot, Killer Kross becoming the Blood King of the Battle Riot, and the MLW World Heavyweight Champion, that was a give back to audiences all over the world that have been with me. And Scarlett and I very much felt like that. And a lot of the fans have felt like that too. It's a lot of this is very much, in my opinion, it's a little bit easier than sometimes it's made out to be. You just have to listen to the audience. That's all you have to do. And then go from there. And I understand the audience says different things, and it's hard to, you know, get all the voices in one linear track, but figure it out. You know what I mean? Figure it out.
Absolutely. I know exactly what you mean. You know, you're absolutely right. You know, just figure it out. You know, we're here. We put our, everyone's not going to like what's going on there. You know, you'll get, most of us, we agree on a lot of things, but a lot of us, we don't. So one of the things that everyone really points to is, you know, we see the character of, you know, Killer Kross, and, you know, we seen you come through NXT. We saw you on the main roster in the WWE, and now we see you in MLW and through all the other independents. But I believe it was a WrestleMania rant. You just got tired of everything. And do you think that, not rant, but like that finally speaking your mind helped you in your path of what you're going through right now?
Well, I think it all accumulates into whatever it becomes in our present day.
Mhm.
That's the best way I can answer that. I think everything that happens kind of snowballs into what we're in right now. Like whether it's wrestling, business, sports, life, all of the experiences, they either stick together or they fall off. And I feel like all of the positive things that have happened, including the negative ones too, they've all equaled out to a positive moment that I'm in right now, at least. That's how I feel about it.
I totally agree. I totally agree. You know, so many, so many, incarnations of the character Kross, from, carrying Kross, the Killer Kross, to like you were a cult leader, you were a mythical warrior, you were very supernatural in so many different ways, and now you're the butt kicker that you are right now. Which incarnation of Kross is closer to yourself, but just like jacked up to 15?
Right now, currently, a lot of it is me.
Okay.
And I never wanted to do this. I never wanted to do this. I really wanted to play a character I could bring to life, something larger than life that you can't find anywhere. I really believed in that ideology of the wrestling business, and I still do. But you know, just being transparent with you, I felt privately like I personally still needed a lot of work as a human being. So I wasn't comfortable to be myself with the volume turned up. I didn't know what that even looked like. I didn't know if I wanted people to see that. So doing strong character work for years, even before WWE, was a safe place for me, and people were enjoying it. So I was like, well, I'm enjoying playing this character. The crowd's giving me things to evolve the character with. They're enjoying it. They're paying to see it. They want to see more. I'll just keep doing that. But after a while, when you give the reins of your character to another party, and respectfully, I'm saying this respectfully, you feel as though it's being underwritten and it's harming the integrity of the character and the lethality, the perception of lethality and equity. That's brutal. And, serendipitously, I write this book and people get to know more about me, and I do the audiobook and people are hearing me read the book, and now they're learning more about me. And I'm like, you know what? I'm actually all right. Maybe, like I'm actually good to be myself in front of people now. And I've done the work. I've done the work as a human being, as a man. And because I've written the book and I've done the documentaries, I feel like people know more about me than they ever have in my wrestling career. And I don't mind really being myself out there with the volume turned up now. And you know what's crazy, man? Now, these are the strongest reactions I've ever gotten in my career over the last, I don't know, let's say year and a half with WWE and post WWE and the independents and MLW. I'm happy with where we're at, and I've never been more comfortable with who I am. I think for a long time I was afraid of losing things and losing people for being honest. It's something I think we all go through. That's like a human struggle. If anything, it's a Western culture struggle. I go to Europe and UK and Eastern Europe, they don't give a how you feel about what they have to say, and they all get along just fine. Spending time in other cultures really made me more comfortable with just being honest. And if things are going to fall away because I'm being honest, then they can go away, and I'll just keep a tight circle of sincerity, integrity, and honesty.
You know what? I agree. You got to be yourself. You got to be, you got to be the man that you are, and I mean, I can understand, you're trying to be a character and you're able to project that. And I think this is the best that we've seen you. We've finally seen you wrote the novel, you wrote the story, and now you can be you. Absolutely. I love the incarnation right now, man. And this is awesome. So let's talk about a little things in your career, in your mind. What was the biggest highlight so far of your career so far?
Well, Battle Riot,
Mhm.
MLW Battle Riot. That was the most time I had ever spent out there live in front of people. That was grueling. I knew it was going to be difficult. It was the most physically taxing thing I have ever done in professional wrestling, and I got to do it in front of a packed house, in front of my family, and thank God it was one of those matches because I've had them where they weren't filmed throughout my career, but thank God it was filmed and now it's digitally published and out there forever for people to watch. MLW Battle Riot. That's absolutely. I've done amazing things, and I'm grateful for having the opportunity to do all those things. SummerSlam, WrestleMania, Royal Rumble. I grew up watching that stuff, and it was awesome. But to me, for all the sentimental reasons, and for what the performance meant for people who have been behind me, it's MLW Battle Riot, without a doubt.
Absolutely. You know, you nailed it right on the head. And to believe it or not, that was an absolute, the word banger is used a lot, but it was just so awe-inspiring. And, we talk about, you starting off as number one, and your friend Matt Riddle, your strong partner, comes out as number two. I gotta ask, we pull the curtain back of the industry a little bit, and when MLW officials, when someone like a Court Bauer and their creative team comes to you and says, you know what, we're going to put you in number one and you're going to win it all. How does it feel that the company trusts you to carry the ball? How much pressure does a position like this carry for you? Is this something that you thrive on, or do you crack under pressure?
I love pressure. So I've always said this: pressure is a privilege. It is an opportunity to figure out what you're actually made of. We go through life, and thank God life is like this at this point. But like all of us have a lot of comfort. We have a lot of comfort. I've been in places. I travel to third world countries, and I've been everywhere all over the world. And I even remember growing up having four jobs. Never mind the third world country. Living here in the United States or in Canada, having four jobs and having checks bounced from credible companies, and you have rent to pay. Like, I've been without. I've had periods in my life where I've been without, and I've been around people and cultures that live without and will never have, so to speak, right? Comfort is wonderful, but you will never figure out who you are when you live in comfort. And it's scary to step away from that because that's a real dice roll. You step away from comfort, anything can go wrong. Anything can go wrong. But that's where you figure out who you are and what you actually are, what you're made of. Not the story you tell yourself, not what you tell people, not what you say in media to sound cool. You really figure out who the f- you are. So when pressure comes around, I never run from it. I'm right then and there. You know, it comes around, I don't care for it. Get me away from it. Not interested. Pressure's another story. Bring that over here. I will show you what I'm made of.
Absolutely. I agree the same way. I thrive under pressure too. I might not feel the best, but I crack under pressure. And I feel that it shows you what kind of person you are when you're put under intense pressure. So now we get to the little fun part of the show. Everyone asks, I reach out and I ask everyone, hey, I got Killer Kross on my show. I got Matt Riddle. I got Tom Lawler here in a few weeks. If you could ask them anything, what would it be? And and I got three common ones it's two of them that I really wanted to know. And, these are kind of personal for me, but you know what? The fans asked for it too. So I have to ask, past or present, dead or alive, who would be your dream opponent?
It would have been Roddy Piper. It would have been Roddy Piper for sure. I've always liked his ability to tell stories. I've always liked his ability to literally get with anybody and be able to, if left to his own devices, he can create a compelling story to talk people into a building to watch an epic fight, an epic match go down. I mean, he was one of the best of all time at that, in my opinion.
Absolutely.
Yeah, he could have took any. He could have took anybody. He could have took a guy out of the crowd who had no ring experience, and he could have sold you in 30 days. It's me and this guy with the Red Sox jersey. I hate you. I hate you. You know what I mean? He would have been like, and you would have been like, wherever that match is, I'm paying to watch that on pay-per-view, or I'm showing up wherever city in America that is. I want to see what's going to happen with that.
Hot Rod, man, the man on the mic itself could sell out buildings, you know. Being from Charleston and from the South, you know, this is horseman country. I was huge on Ric Flair, and I was introduced to Roddy Piper, you know, in the WWF. You know, most people were Hulk Hogan fans. I mean, I liked Hogan, but like I was drawn to what Piper said on the microphone. He might not have been the most technically sound wrestler, but he really could make you believe that he could whoop you. And then I got to go back and see days with him and Ric Flair wrestling over the United States Championship. And the man was a great amateur wrestler. But man, you and Piper in the ring would have been absolutely great. And the promos, who cannot beat that promo? Okay, so Kross, next question. In your mind, what is the toughest match you have ever been in?
Battle Riot.
I knew that was coming.
Yeah, I got my face kneed in. I got hit with weapons. I had to fight 39 other people. Definitely that. I got teamed up on, sometimes 2 or 3 people kicking my head in. Definitely that one.
Yeah, that probably would have been your toughest one. Absolutely. So before we leave, April 12th, y'all return back to downtown Charleston for a great show that, you know, you're mixing MLW, CMML, and New Japan Pro Wrestling. 3 of the hottest promotions right now that brings legitimacy back to wrestling, pro wrestling. My question is, if someone missed the November show and really hasn't seen Major League Wrestling, they're brand new to the product, what can they expect coming to an MLW show?
You are going to see the alternative of what you have wanted to see on TV, and you're going to see it live. You're going to see mayhem. You're going to see drama. You're going to see violence. You're going to see all the things you're not allowed to see on the shows that you typically watch. It's going to be unfiltered. It's going to be raw, and you're going to get to see performers that have competed all over the world in every single major company, all under one roof.
I couldn't have said it better, champ. You know, you're absolutely right. Major League Wrestling brings all of those. It's a raw, it's a grittiness. It's an absolute phenomenal show to watch, and I can't wait for April 12th when y'all come back to downtown Charleston, just blow the roof off the building. You know, Killer Kross, thank you for joining me today, man. It's been absolutely a great show. I was chomping at the bit for this one, and I was able to get it. I jumped right on. Thank you once again for joining me, champ. Can't wait to see you on the 12th. And everyone else, I can't wait to see you on the 12th out at downtown Charleston for MLW. You know, thank you for joining me here. You know, if you happen to miss a show or going to go back and look at some other shows, you can look right down at the bottom of the carousel on WCBD Plus app to find past shows. You also can find it on the counton2.com on the WCBD Plus app. Just drop box right there, go to Who's the Champ, and you'll see it right there. And also now, previous shows are being posted on YouTube. So hit us subscribe and go back and watch past shows. Once again, thank you for joining me, and I'll see you next time.